Hello, welcome. My name is Irvin Huerta. Welcome to this Q&A for the Cultural Heritage Data School that is going to take place in November 2024. I'm here with my colleagues Anne Alexander and Karen Herbain, and we are going to give some particulars for the data school that is taking place in a few months' time. So I am going to now share my screen so that you know what we're going to be doing. And you should be able to see my screen now. As I was saying before, we're going to have this data school from the 25th of November to the 3rd of December 2024, so a week and a half or so. And this is what we are planning to do for today in the next half an hour or so. So just a brief introduction about what the data schools are, just a brief presentation of content by me, which is just kind of a taste of that content. Then description of some modules by my colleague Anne, who's going to introduce herself in a minute. Then she's going to be talking about a perfect application, if there is such a thing, as well, for all the tickets that we have for the data school. And then we're going to open up the floor for your questions, and then we're going to respond to that, and we're going to wrap up. So if you agree, that's how we're going to proceed. So just as an introduction, in Cambridge Digital Humanities, we run two types of data schools, and our project's aim is to facilitate access to tools, methods for digital data collection, analysis, and reporting. We foster the development of ethical practices in digital research, and we encourage dialogue between academia, civil society, the public sector, and industry about the social, ethical, and policy implications of digital research methods. We very much like to get out of the silo of academia, and we want to bring people actually from the industry working with us and also creating these learning environments. So for the data schools, those are our objectives. And as I was saying, we have two types of data schools. The one that is relevant today is the Cultural Heritage Data School on its online version. Our Cultural Heritage Data School has the aim of bringing together people from the galleries, libraries, archives, and museum sector, the GLAM sector, and of course also researchers and academics working around these subjects to try and study and bring methods and information and tools to create, visualize, and analyze digital archives and collections. It's very much focused then in people working on in museums and galleries and libraries, etc. So as I said, this is an online version. We also have an in-person version taking place in April next year, but this one has the benefit of being online, so you can join from anywhere in the world as long as you can join at the times when we are running the modules, and it's also at a lower price, a lower fee, so it has those benefits too. Who should apply to our online Cultural Heritage Data School? So as I was saying, professionals working in galleries, libraries, archives, and museums, people working in the wider cultural heritage sector, also volunteers in community projects that are, of course, related to the cultural heritage sector, researchers in academic positions in universities, research centers. Students are also welcome to apply, but we will prioritize applications from those who are actively engaged in projects in the industry. So maybe students are volunteering in a museum or in a project that has to do with archiving some collections, etc. So that we will take that into account, but we prefer to engage people who are outside the silo of academia. So those are the kinds of applicants that we are looking for. And we do have the commitment to facilitate access to people around the world. So not just those who can pay the fees. We also encourage people from the Global South and the individuals and organizations representing historically marginalized and oppressed social groups to join us. And to that effect, we offer a limited number of concessions and bursaries. And if you want to apply for any of those, I'm going to give information about that in a minute. And you also will have to make it very clear in your application. And I think also maybe here the time is important if some of our applicants, some of our participants are joining from distant places, not in the UK, particularly in the Global South, might be a difficult thing to join in at a time that is quite late or very early. So as long as you can attend our sessions that are going to be taking place between 1 p.m. and 5 p.m. UK time, that's something you can bear in mind, and we also take that into consideration. So that's our commitment for access. And now it's the fees, which have been advertised already on our website. We have two fees. One is a standard for 245 per person, or concessionary places at £145 per person. So a standard rate is for those who are working in an organization with paid staff. So you can be any cultural institution or university or research center with paid staff. However, you might be able to apply for a concessionary place if, for example, you're working for an organization that has a small number of paid staff, right? So if your organization is not very big, you could be considered for a concessionary place. And apart from the concessionary place, there is also the possibility of applying for bursaries. That's waived fees, so no fees at all for you, and are available for those who cannot afford this training and can make the case about how attending the school will be beneficial for them and to their community, right? So we'll be taking into account if you are already engaged in some projects that are of benefit to society or to particular groups, and the work you're doing is already having an impact. So those are then the fees for the online Cultural Heritage State School in November. So for this iteration of the data school, this Cultural Heritage Data School, we will be focusing on the theme of data preservation. We'll be exploring technologies and infrastructure for managing cultural heritage data. And in an era where cultural institutions are often making their collections freely available online, we believe that questioning data provenance, data protection, data security is an important thing, and it's something that is going to remain crucial for the years to come, and particularly important and relevant for many institutions in the West these days. So we are going to be revolving around this theme. Anna Alexander is going to talk a little bit more about it in a second. But I mean, that doesn't really preclude that we are going to be having other contents, the normal data pipeline for a data project, from collection to analysis to visualization and other things. In fact, I have another slide here with more content. So those that have to do with data preservation, of course, data preservation itself, ethical research design, also will be touching upon that. Collecting and working with cultural heritage data at scale, and also other things kind of at the kind of related to the data pipeline, but not necessarily data preservation, are things like the AI and collections, text wrangling for cultural heritage projects, the use of research design in general, And we're also going to have a clinic with a research software engineer. More on that in a minute. But if you come to the data school, you're going to have the opportunity to talk, to have a time of clinic with a research software engineer. That's Jonathan Blaney, who works at CDH and helps our MPhil students with their projects, with any kind of digital humanities project that needs some tool or coding or some ideas that require a research software engineer to kind of come to reality. So you're going to have the chance to have a talk, have a chat with him. And what you receive if you join the data school, so in total, you're going to have around 23 hours of live sessions. They're going to be spread over 1.5 weeks over the dates that I've just said. I've mentioned the clinic with Jonathan Blaney. You're also going to have opportunities for interactions with teachers and participants. We like to have interactions. We know that it's a virtual space. So that's why we create virtual spaces so that we can interact and collaborate, and hopefully we can create our community for learning, teaching and learning, but also for future collaborations. So we try to do that. Also, you're going to have access to course materials, which will include tutorials, further resources, all of those accessible online. And you are encouraged to study these resources some even weeks before we start with the data school. You're going to have a whole sheet of software requirements and resources that you can tap into. You also receive troubleshooting sessions. That's also something very important, and some of our participants have found very useful, because sometimes a new software cannot be installed in the computer, or you find a bug or whatever. So it is important to have some troubleshooting sessions, particularly in online environments. So we believe that's an important part of the schools, and it's been successful so far. And you're also going to have access to our interactive virtual learning environment, which allows us to have this virtual teaching and learning space, right? So it's going to be the Cambridge learning environment, the University of Cambridge learning environment, with readings and exercises, and also slides and chats and forums, etc. So that's an overview of what you'll receive. And just to give you a glimpse of the speakers that we're going to be having in this iteration of the data school, the Cultural Heritage Data School, we're going to have Professor Almut Hintz from SOAS. She is the Zoroastrianism professor at SOAS, and she's going to be talking to us about a project that she was involved in with data futures about using some standard classification of manuscripts. So this is going to be a privilege to have her. We're also going to have Professor Yael Navarro from University of Cambridge. She is a social, political, and psychological anthropology professor at the University of Cambridge, but she's actually worked with us at CDH and the data schools to develop a project on the Antakya, the project Antakya Memory, or the Antakya Memory Project, which is about the preservation of the memory of that city in Turkey after the devastating earthquake of last year. So that's what we're going to be talking about with Yael. You're also going to have Hugh Jones, who works at the Digital Library in the University of Cambridge. And he's going to be talking to us about text wrangling for cultural heritage projects. We're going to have Anna Alexander, of course, talking to us also about the data pipeline in general, but also about data preservation, ethical practices. She's going to be talking to us about that in a minute. And Jonathan Blaney, the one I was talking about, who's our research software engineer and helping us with the clinic. These are not all of the speakers, but these are the confirmed speakers. We're going to have more speakers and more modules. So just keep an eye open on our website. We're gonna be updating it soon so that you have the up-to-date information. But these are key speakers that we're going to be having for this iteration of the day school. Those are the speakers, and I believe from now is going to be the time for Anne, my colleague Anne Alexander, to describe some of the modules that she's going to be talking about, and also hopefully the perfect application for the online cultural heritage data school.
Yeah, thank you very much, Irving, and thank you to everyone for coming today. And I'm looking forward to getting on to your questions in a minute. I just thought I would give you an overview of some of the ways in which we approach the content and the curriculum at the Cultural Heritage Data School, and then I'll talk briefly about what we're looking for in terms of applications. So I think the first thing to say is that we attempt to structure the Cultural Heritage Data School around different moments in the digital research project life cycle, so that we are covering both, from the very beginning, questions of research design and ethical practice around data collection, then data preparation, analysis, wrangling of different sorts of data. In this case, we have a module around working with textual data, over to questions around the presentation of data, and then the longer term sustainability and preservation of data in a context that is shaped by the datafication of many aspects of life, and also changing context, changing situations in terms of threats to that data and issues around data security and so on. I mean, as an illustration of the changing environment in which cultural heritage institutions operate digitally, people will be aware of obviously the impact of, for example, the ransomware attack on the British Library. That had a very significant impact on the library as an institution. One of the questions we'll be asking and debating with experts during the school is, what does this mean? What do these kind of changed circumstances mean for the practice of cultural heritage institutions and cultural heritage practitioners at different institutional backgrounds, different disciplines, and in different contexts? One of the things that I think is valuable about the Cultural Heritage Data School is that we do generally have people from a variety of different types of institution taking part in the data school. So we do have, often in previous years, we've had participants from quite large cultural heritage sector institutions across Britain and in Europe and elsewhere in the world. As Irving said, we make an effort to try and encourage applications from colleagues in the Global South, for example, and one of the ways we facilitate that is through our bursary scheme and concession schemes. But we also have a whole number of people who take part who are from smaller galleries, libraries, archives, museums, or cultural heritage projects, people who work as volunteers in cultural heritage for community heritage organizations, and so on, and some people who are academics and students who are engaging with the sector as more as researchers, but are interested in working with people from different cultural heritage sector backgrounds. So this is also a very important aspect of the way that the school works, is actually the exchange and interplay between what participants bring to each other, as well as what we try and teach and share from our perspective. So we do structure in plenty of opportunities for discussion and interaction. There'll be more detail coming out soon about the actual content of the modules, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of points about a few of them. So, particularly in relation to the ones that I'll be contributing on. So, in relation to, for example, the ethical research design module, we will be looking at the ethical questions that arise from working with cultural heritage data in a context where, for example, one of the questions that will come up for cultural heritage institutions is, if they make their data available, what uses might be made of that, for example, by by third parties using it as training data for machine learning systems, or what the question around the contextualization of collections in different political contexts will mean for curators and for users of that data. So, for example, historical collections that may have included imagery or text that are offensive. How can that best be contextualized, and what do we need to take into account when designing projects working with that data or engaging with their presentation online? I just want to say a couple of very brief things about the perfect application. I mean, this is the first thing I would encourage people to do, is that if you're applying, please do write as much as you can in your application. It really helps us. It's very hard to make a decision if you don't actually give us any detail. And often the reasons why we reject applications, was a chunk of them, it's actually because people didn't put in very much detail about what they about themselves or what they wanted. It really does make a difference. The data schools are relatively competitive for places. We can't accept everyone's application, unfortunately, and so the more information you give, the easier it is for us to make a decision. What we're looking for is really three things. One of these is evidence of your engagement with the cultural heritage sector. And that could be from a range of different perspectives. It could be as somebody who's a professional working for a cultural heritage institution. It could be as somebody who's a volunteer but engaged in the sector in some way through a community project or an unfunded project. It could be as a student or a researcher. In the case of if you're a student or a researcher, we're particularly interested in facilitating dialogue between academic researchers and students, perhaps people who want to work in the cultural heritage sector after graduating, and for them the school is a stepping stone towards that, and practitioners in the sector. So although some of the tasks that we're teaching, some of the methods that we're teaching could be applied to other kinds of academic research, we're likely to prioritize people who are interested in the question in relation to the use of cultural heritage data within the GLAM sector and the wider cultural heritage sector. The other things that we're looking for are that there'll be a personal benefit to you, that you can make a case for how it will help you, and obviously again, more information is really helpful here, so that we can also make sure that people are not applying thinking that we're offering something that we can't. So again, telling us what you would like to benefit from, what skills you would like to acquire is extremely helpful. And the final thing, as Irving mentioned, is that if you're part of a project where there'll be a benefit to a wider layer of people, through it could be as part of a community facing project, or it could be just that you will be able to pass on the skills that you've learned to other people in your own organization, or you have you have a perspective of trying to do that at some point in the future. Again, that could be a positive thing that we would look for in a strong application. I think I'll leave it there, unless Irving, there's anything else you wanted me to cover.
No, I think you covered everything perfectly. Yes, thank you, Anne. So that's the description of some modules and the perfect application. Now, just going to be talking about some technical requirements for joining the data school. Of course, you will need an internet connection for video calls and a computer, right? A laptop or desktop where you can install software. And I think I need to emphasize this because we've had some problems with people who maybe use a computer from their institution, the institution that they work for, and they cannot install the software. And this is important because some of the software that we use, is sometimes for free, but then some institutions they don't allow employees to install software for security reasons, and sometimes they need to ask for permission beforehand to install such software. So we encourage people to use computers in which they can install software. And then some of the software packages that you will need. This is not an exhaustive list. This is just some of them. Later on, you're going to, if you're accepted into the school, you're going to receive a document with all the software and the technical requirements needed, as well as instructions to install them. But of course, you're going to need Zoom. That's the platform that we're going to be using for the modules. GitHub account as well, OpenRefine for data cleaning, Anaconda, in which we can use some Jupyter notebooks for coding with Python, and more to be confirmed for our virtual collaborations, and also for having conversations between us. We tend to use Spatial for virtual reality and a little bit of interaction in virtual spaces. So that's also something to bear in mind. But those are the general requirements, right, for the data school. And finally, important dates for this data school. The application deadline is the 1st of September. So you still have some time to apply, but don't get lost. Don't get lost in the middle of the summer. If you try and finish your application sooner rather than later, that'll be very good for us. And you will hear if your application was successful or not by 6 September. And also, I need to emphasize that, well, this is a school with limited places. We're thinking about 30 places, more or less, for our data school. And the competition is high, and we cannot accommodate everyone. So you'll hear if you have a place by 6 September. And then just the data school taking place between the 25th of November and the 3rd of December, a week and a half of hopefully very engaging and interesting conversations about cultural heritage, digital humanities, data, etc. Points of contact as well. Feel free to send us an email. That's the email of the data schools. And that's also my personal email. Please contact me. I'm the convener of the data schools. So please do contact me if you have any particular question that has not been addressed, and be happy to answer. Also, please have a look at our social media accounts. We are on X and Instagram and LinkedIn. So do stay in touch through those channels. And I believe we're going to just then leave it like that for the first part of the Q&A, where we just gave an overview of the whole school. And now we're going to move on to your questions, and then we're going to try and answer.